Let us begin with good news. Even during a week of market consolidation, several BRVM stocks delivered strong gains, while the total value of transactions increased. The broader market moved slightly lower, but investor capital continued to flow towards some of the region's most established companies. Welcome to Markets Talk, the podcast by Daba Finance. In this episode, we review the week from July 27 to 31, covering market indexes, top-performing stocks, bond trading, dividends, and major financial developments across Africa. The BRVM composite fell by 0.34%, closing at 482.65 points. The BRVM 30 declined by 0.28% to 230.08 points, while the BRVM principal fell by 0.84% to 365.27 points. However, the BRVM prestige rose by 0.26% to 177.96 points. This index includes some of the market's strongest and most established companies. Its positive performance suggests that investors are not abandoning the BRVM. Instead, they are becoming more selective. The number of shares traded fell by 39.76% to just over 577 million shares. However, the total value of transactions rose by 15.18% to approximately 8,852 million CFA francs. Fewer shares were traded, but more money changed hands. This means activity was concentrated in higher-priced stocks and large companies. Sonatel Senegal was the most actively traded stock, with approximately 1,309 million CFA francs in transactions. That represented 14.79% of total market activity. Société Générale, Côte d'Ivoire, and Solibra. Côte d'Ivoire were also among the most heavily traded companies. Now, let us look at the top stocks. Secor Côte d'Ivoire led the market with a gain of 20.75%, closing at 6,400 CFA francs. Investors should remember that Secor has relatively limited liquidity. This means a small number of large orders can cause significant price movement. Aura Group Togo rose by 16.30% to 3,140 CFA francs, supported by renewed investor interest in regional banking stocks. Safka Côte d'Ivoire gained 8% to close at 5,130 CFA francs. The rise reflected optimism ahead of the admission of new shares from the company's capital increase, scheduled for August 11th. Onatel Burkina Faso also rose by 6.96%, while BOA Côte d'Ivoire gained 6.03%. These performances show that banking, telecommunications, and agro-industrial stocks continue to offer areas of strength, even when the overall market is slowing. The week was still mixed. A total of 24 stocks declined, 22 advanced, and 1 remained unchanged. ETI recorded the largest fall, declining by 9.59% to 66 CFA francs. This followed several weeks of strong gains and appears to reflect profit-taking. Profit-taking happens when investors sell after a price increase to lock in their gains. Sicable fell by 7.77%, while Citao declined by 7.75%. These movements also appear to be part of a market consolidation rather than evidence of a broad collapse in investor confidence. On the bond market, total market capitalization fell by 0.2% to approximately 12,992,700,000,000 CFA francs. A total of 195,258 bonds were traded, with an overall transaction value of about 1,767,500,000 CFA francs. Trading highlighted the Senegal government 3-year bond carrying a coupon of 6.40%. A total of 100 bonds changed hands for 995,000 CFA francs. Its turnover rate was only 0.056%, showing that trading activity in this bond remained limited. For bond investors, the interest rate is not the only factor to consider. Liquidity also matters. A bond may offer an attractive return, but it can be difficult to sell quickly when there are few buyers in the market. Bonds highlighted for the coming week offered yields to maturity ranging from about 7.5% to slightly more than 11%. The list included a BIDC 10-year bond, a CRH WEMOA 10-year bond, a TPCI 7-year bond, and several Senegal government bonds with 3-year and 5-year maturities. Some of these bonds were trading below their face value. When an investor buys a bond below the amount that will be repaid at maturity, the effective return can be higher than the stated coupon rate. Dividends also remain an important part of the BRVM story. A total of 34 companies out of 47 were identified as dividend-paying companies. with an average yield of approximately 4.59%. BIC and SIB completed dividend payments on July 31st, so Libra paid its dividend on July 30th, CIE on July 28th, and Total Senegal on July 17th. Other confirmed payments include companies such as LNB, NSIA Bank, SOGB, Citab, CFAO Motors, Nestlé, and Surveyor. Download the Daba app to access the complete dividend calendar, including payment dates, dividend amounts, yields, and ex-dividend dates. Beyond the BRVM, several major developments shaped African markets during the week. Gabon raised $920 million through a 7-year Eurobond with an annual coupon of 9.375%. Investor orders exceeded $1 billion. This strong demand confirms that Gabon can still access international capital markets. However, the high coupon also shows that borrowing remains expensive. For investors, higher returns often come with higher credit and repayment risks. Africa's private capital market delivered mixed results during the first half of 2026. The number of transactions fell by 16% to 211 deals, but their total value rose by 65% to $3.7 billion. This means a small number of very large transactions drove overall investment value. West Africa led the continent by deal count, recording 59 transactions. S&P Global also agreed to acquire a majority stake in the African ratings agency Augusto and Company. The partnership could strengthen local credit analysis, improve transparency, and give investors better information about companies and governments seeking financing. West African leaders also reaffirmed their intention to launch the ECO single currency in 2027 through a phased approach. Countries joining the first phase must meet several economic conditions. These include keeping inflation below 10%, limiting budget deficits to 4% of gross domestic product, and maintaining enough foreign exchange reserves to cover at least 3 months of imports. The ECO will not transform regional trade immediately. However, over time, a successful common currency could reduce exchange costs and make cross-border payments easier. In Angola, Unitel's initial public offering was oversubscribed by 21%, despite a cyber attack shortly before the company's market debut. In Tunisia, trading was suspended after the Tunindex fell sharply enough to activate the exchange's circuit breaker. A circuit breaker temporarily stops trading during extreme market movements to reduce panic selling and protect market stability. Looking ahead, several major BRVM companies continue to trade below analysts' estimated target prices, particularly in banking and telecommunications. We will not mention individual opportunities here because detailed recommendations, entry levels, and price targets are reserved for Daba Pro subscribers. Bond investors should continue comparing yield, maturity, liquidity, and the financial strength of each issuer before making a decision. To learn how to analyze stocks, understand bonds, evaluate dividends, and manage investment risk, join Daba Academy. A special promotion is currently available. Use the code PODCAST during registration to receive a discount of 3,000 CFA francs. To receive weekly recommendations, access exclusive market analysis, use detailed investment data, and benefit from reduced investing fees, subscribe to Daba Pro. With Daba Pro, you do not simply follow the markets, you stay ahead of them. This was your weekly market recap on Markets Talk, the podcast by Daba Finance. I am your markets editor, always connected to the pulse of Francophone Africa. See you soon, stay curious, and stay invested.